let's talk. Hey guys, so I'm going to be talking about the tools that I use, and this has pretty much been started by somebody in the comments who was asking what kind of tools I use. And I just want to say, props to you for trying to get into woodworking. It is a pretty expensive and say difficult endeavor, as in by you do need a bit of patience, and these things are pretty dangerous and it's expensive again, but it's also very, very rewarding. So let's just go through the main tools that I use. So I got this table saw here for just general cutting, this router for the very fine, intricate stuff, pillar drill for all your holes and stuff, and the miter saw for 90-degree cuts. So these tools here, as well as the belt sander over there, these are just ordinary tools, just fitted under the table. So that's a palm router. You could also use a plunger type as well, and you got a handheld circular saw there. Now, as you could tell, that this isn't even a table, it's just just floorboard, just held on by a clamp onto this other table. But it just goes to show how easy it is to make a table router. So basically, you just line up the holes, I guess you mark and drill the holes for your router, and get one of these pieces, I guess, I don't know which one of these, if you could see, just route straight through as if you're drilling, and then expand it, and then here you go. Then drill like some lines or mill some lines, and fit a fence in, and you are pretty much good to go. For the table saw though, it is much more difficult, as I've found, and in my opinion it isn't really worth it, simply because this isn't too high of a cutting height. So this is a 160mm blade, and you got this really thick piece of wood as well getting in the way, and that's like it looks like less than 2 inches, 5 centimeters of cutting, just cutting really. So for thin stuff, and if you're on a really tight budget and you already have one of these handheld circular saws, then sure, you can make your own table saw. But from my experience, I feel like it's much easier to just buy one that is already a table saw, but not one that's so cheap that it's borderline dangerous. So please check that in mind. So the pillar drill is another one that I use a lot. I could have adapted like a handheld drill onto a frame like I did on the belt sander, but to be fair, this is one of the better investments that I've made. And yes, it is really dinky and it's not very accurate, but as long as you put in procedures like punching and constantly making pilot holes, this is very, very good. And as long as your table is also completely 90 degrees and it's lined up and stuff like that. And so here's the belt sander. I've actually made a video on this like a year ago. You can have a look at it. It's probably my 3rd or 2nd video on this whole channel, but this is really good for, again, the very tiny things that I do, and sometimes metal things as well with a good belt. So as you can see, these are the markings of where the router was. So this was again a router table. It's just that MDF sometimes swells over time and it just doesn't get accurate anymore. So that's why I temporarily moved it to just a slab of floorboard. And again, it goes to show how easy it is to make one. Just make one like within 10 minutes and you're good to go. But of course, if you want to make your own table saw, router, belt sander and all that stuff, it's good to have something that is accurate in the first place, like this here. So all of these will basically cut using this miter saw, and again, once you know that you're getting pretty accurate like 90-degree cuts and stuff like that, then you'd be pretty confident in making other tools of your own and knowing that they too are accurate. And speaking of like accuracy and stuff like that, measuring devices. So a must for the woodworker are like tri-squares and just any squares really to check 90 degrees. And you don't need a pair of vernier calipers like I have here. I bought these because again I was working on really tiny things and I am pretty finicky about accuracy. But you don't need them, especially if you're working on like larger projects. And of course, rulers like the meter longs and just general ones really. And what I have here are frame clamps, and these can get very large. Basically, they can clamp maybe even this whole table here, and that's very, very useful. And there are such things as G clamps and C clamps of metal, but what I found is that F clamps are the better choice for the woodworker. Like this one here is quick release. There are other ones as well that are, wow, that's loud. And there are other ones that are very, very long, very useful for large projects and small ones too. But then once you've started collecting like a bunch of tools and things and you started working, you do end up realizing that basically you need to start acting like a workshop, and you need to put in workshop procedures. Obviously you've got the personal protective equipment, but the other important one is dealing with dust, because when you cut like something pretty small, especially MDF, it does spew out a lot of dust. And the thing about MDF dust is that it gets everywhere, it's very fine stuff, and it's carcinogenic. So you definitely need to have a vacuum cleaner, and basically for these DIY tools that I've made, they actually have a port, don't know if you can see that, underneath each and every one of them. This one's easier, here and down there as well. So again, it makes things, makes cleaning up much easier, and you don't have to breathe in all of this stuff too. And so I think that's everything. Like these here are 4 snippets, so these are very, very good if you just want like clean, accurate holes. But these ones here are absolute garbage quality. Just as you can tell, they're rusted because I very rarely use them. I bought ones that have carbide tips on them, just like these router bits here, and they last much longer, or at least last as long as they should, because the material that I work with, which is laminated floorboard, which is this, it eats up all of my tools, so there's nothing I could do about that. But softer woods, you'd be just fine. They'd last pretty long. I think the other one, which is right here, and if you could see it, oh gosh, that's really dark. This here is a planer slash thicknesser. So it's a planer on top, not the bottom. You could like uniformly make something thinner. It's very, very good, but I've rarely used this. It's it's pretty expensive, and at this point, if you're just starting out, I don't recommend getting a planer slash thicknesser unless your project specifically needs it. And I think that is everything. Hopefully you've learned a few things about like my setup and how I got around to building these up and things like that. So yeah, this is the budding engineer. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your woodworking career.